to Sebastian and Yassine for his invite. So I will show you what, in our view, is tokenomics and how it can be applied to startups running ICO. So first, so more generally, not only tokens, there is three categories of crypto assets. The first one being cryptocurrencies. It's digital assets that are used only to transfer value from one people to another one without a trusted intermediary, such as bank. So it has been the first use case for blockchain. Then we had the infrastructure layer. So leveraging the blockchain technology to execute smart contracts in a decentralized way. And then the last and more recent application of blockchain is decentralized application. It's like mobile application that we used to know from the internet era, but using decentralized ledger instead of centralized database. So that's the three layers that we have now, with the first one and the older being transfer of value, such as Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dash. Second one being the infrastructure layer, allowing to execute smart contract in a decentralized manner. And third one being the application on top of the infrastructure layer. So when we talk about token, we talk about non-native crypto asset of a blockchain. For instance, Bitcoin is considered as a coin, not as a token, because it's the native crypto asset of the Bitcoin blockchain. Ether is a coin as well. And ERC20 tokens, they are tokens because they use the Ethereum blockchain to be created. So the main difference between coin and tokens. Tokenomics is the analysis of tokens. So first, let's talk about the Internet of Value. So Internet has allowed people to transfer information, music, emails, text. Blockchain allows to transfer value. The difference between information and value is that when you give information to someone else, you still have this information. But if you give value to someone else, you don't have this value anymore. So what has been used for centuries is the use of trusted intermediaries, banks, that had the right to tell you who is owning a piece of value. And so you had to need these intermediaries. Now, with blockchain, you can create digital scarcity and trustless system. You don't trust the bank anymore. You can only trust the blockchain that every network participant keeps on his computer. So with blockchain, the big innovation is the possibility to transfer value without government, banks, and intermediary. Then came smart contracts such as Ethereum that allow to do smart assets and issue asset on top of this protocol, and more importantly, autonomously manage asset movement. So you can say under this condition, you will send this piece of ownership, being the token, and so it's what we call programmable money or programmable asset. So a token, as well explained Sebastian, can represent anything from financial security, such as equity or debt, to a voucher. And it can be any right to access, any right to work. It can represent any ownership with something that is a digital token. So we see token definitely as a new asset class. Basically, there is two main categories of token: what we call security token and what we call utility token. So security token represents traditional financial instruments such as equity, bonds, hybrid instruments such as mezzanine that are represented in token. So it's innovative in the sense that you can trade this token without centralized authorities such as stock exchange. You can do it in a decentralized way, but it's not that much really revolutionary. What we think is really revolutionary is the utility token, because you can monetize and make liquid something that was not in the past. For instance, a voucher is now liquid and tradable. It was not the case before. So we think that utility token really is the main innovation and the game-changing use case for blockchain. And so this differentiation between securities and utility will result in different regulation. Securities falls under security law, so it's the same law as equity fundraising, debt fundraising. And utilities are sometimes considered as commodities, sometimes regulators just have no clues about what it is. So there is an uncertainty about the regulation, and in most of the case, security law doesn't apply. So there is more freedom about what you can do and how you can raise money. And then going to the valuation, so valuing an equity is known for decades or centuries, so there is a lot of models, discounted cash flow model, peer valuation, peer comparison, multiple, so we have all the clue to give the accurate valuation of security token. Utility token is pretty much different because there is no model that has been proven for this new asset class being used for only 2 or 3 years. We think that quantity theory of money is the best tool to model the value. That's our view, but it's still tricky to apply because theory quantity of money have been created for fiat currency used into a country or a continent like Europe. With a token used into an ecosystem or a platform, it's pretty much different. But we think that we can use the same variables for utility token as for fiat currency. So then we go to ICO, an initial token offering, so token sale. Why it has been so interesting for entrepreneurs? It's because they find a way to raise money without getting diluted, without having to repay, without interest, without dividend. So it's almost free money. It's not totally free because they have to deliver a product and the token need to have a utility. But compared to what was existing before, it's really game changing because you can raise funds without being liable on your company. So that's what's interesting. And it's thanks to Ethereum, the Ethereum ERC-20 standard, and the way it allowed to issue a token in exchange of Ether has allowed some team of a few people to raise the dozen or hundred of million euros. And so we think it's because this new instrument, the token, is very, very interesting to raise funds without having like big liabilities to the investors. So when it comes to launch an ICO, it's not that much straightforward. There is a lot of steps you have to follow and then to conduct a successful ICO. So first, you have to start with the feasibility. You have to consider the jurisdiction, the legal consideration, and the utility of the token. All business model cannot be tokenized. If there is no ownership right, voting right, or any kind of digital ownership that you can represent the token, it's not possible to issue a token for your project. So there is an important track that has been done for that. There are some ICOs that say we have a project and the token will be the currency of our project. It doesn't make sense. Your token needs to represent something, needs to represent a right, an ownership. It just can be the currency of your ecosystem. So there is a big work in terms of designing the utility of the token. And then you have to write white paper and giving all the relevant information. Most important information being how your token model works, your token economy, what are the flow between the stakeholder, who will be the stakeholder is very important as well, obviously. Then once you have this material, you can communicate about it. You do your roadshow, you go to events, you do your marketing. You have to really engage the community around you because the idea of a token is to have a community backing you that will be using your service. If you are the only one using your service, there is no need for this token. So you need to do a very good communication to really engage your community. Then you go to the pre-sale round. Pre-sale, you will be dealing with big guys, VC funds, family office, business angels. They will want due diligence, and you will have to be good with investor relations because these guys are professional investors, and they will not give money without being sure that it will create value for them. When you have the money from the pre-sale, you can go to the crowd sale. So it's a new communication and community engagement campaign, but it's really to raise the fund. So you have been starting with engaging your community before the pre-sale, and now it's the time to collect the fund from the people who are backing you. And then once you have raised the money, you give the token to your investors come listing time. So the ICO is over, your token is on exchanges, and so the value of your token will be very dependent on the activity on the exchange you are listed on, and the market movement as a whole. So it's something that you could not consider at the beginning of the ICO, but it's actually very important because that will be the long-term value of the token. The long-term value of the token will be on the exchanges. So after all this ICO, you have to still be working on your tokenomics and your valuation because the token is tradable on the exchanges. That's not the case for traditional startups because startups equity are not tradable. So it's really a very ICO specific issue. So with what we have said, let's try to explain why we have seen such bubble since the beginning of the year. To quote Thomson Reuters, financial bubble can be tied to financial innovation when financial innovation turns into liquid assets, some assets that have been non-liquid in the past. And so that's exactly the case. You had this startup equity that have been bought by venture capital funds for decades that was not liquid. So the only liquidity was when it was new funding round or at IPO, but it was not liquid since day one. And that's the big change with token. And with this you can mix information asymmetry and a lot of new technology surrounding the blockchain, and you come to the speculative bubble we said. So how can tokenomics help the ecosystem to avoid such bubbles? First, by avoiding information asymmetry. I think it's the key. But more concretely, tokenomics starts before the ICO. So and doesn't stop even after the ICO when the token is listed. So as tokenomics, we see four main points. First is monetary tokenomics, because you need to understand how monetary economics work, what's inflation, deflation, because for instance, if you do a token with a rewarding scheme, for instance, Bitcoin is a rewarding scheme. They are rewarding miners, same for Ethereum. So the supply is increasing over time, it's inflation. So you need to be aware of that. Then you need to be aware of game theory as well. For instance, the idea of proof of work is based on game theory. The idea is that there is no incentive for one network participant to shut down the whole network because is actually contributing with its energy power to maintain this network. So if he shut down the network he's paying to maintain, it doesn't make sense. So you have to make sure that there is clear incentivizing people to create value around the project. So that's all monetary tokenomics and game theory happened before the ICO. It results in building the ecosystem, looking at the mechanism design, and obviously looking at the token metrics. Token metrics is how many tokens are issued, what's the circulating supply, what's the reserve, what will be given to the team. Actually, some people think that tokenomics only is how you share the total supply among the stakeholders. But it's just a part, an important part, right? But it's not all the tokenomics. Then once you have built all your ecosystem and you see what is the price per token, you need to go to see the investor with the clear valuation of your project. Because if you are raising funds for a company, it will not make sense to raise 100 million if you are targeting a 1 million market. But with crypto, you have sometimes some startups that target a niche market and they want to raise hundreds of millions of dollars. This doesn't make sense. So you really need to see what's the market you are targeting, and then you have to to compute what's the value resulting for this market size based on the velocity, based on the feature of your token. But market sizing really is important when it comes to valuating your token. And then the market finance part of this tokenomics is the liquidity post-market, post-listing. And market watch is very important because price movement of the token will be very dependent on market activity. For instance, when you saw Bitcoin decreasing at the beginning of the year, almost all token lost value, not only in euro but also in Bitcoin because it was fueled. And so you have to keep an eye on market watch when evaluating the token and see if it's a good opportunity to invest or not. And so monetary economics, game theory, valuation, and market finance, it's 4 tools that need to be used when issuing your token. Because if one is missing, the token model as a whole can be really unsuccessful, and you will not be able to deliver value to any network participant. So the first thing being the token model design. So the token model design is before the ICO, actually before writing your white paper. It comes at the ideation phase. So the first thing you have to understand is who are the ecosystem participants. It can be users, it can be miners, it can be supplier of goods or services, it can be clients, it can be the platform itself, it can be a stakeholder. So you have to make sure you have all the stakeholders that will interact between each other and with the platform using the token. Very important to figure out who they are. And then once you know who is acting into the ecosystem, you need to know how do they interact between each other. So is the token used to vote for something? Is the token used for a certain staking? Is it used to buy a service, to get a discount for a lease, to verify something as a rewarding scheme? So you need to really make clear that everything makes sense as a whole thing, and that you have been thinking about all the interaction and you have been modeling it. Then comes the mechanism design part. So most mainstream mechanism design tools are rewarding schemes. So you are rewarding people to have healthy behavior. For instance, to go back to Bitcoin example, you are rewarding miners if they do the hash in a good way. If they do the good mining, they receive some Bitcoin. So that's a rewarding scheme to encourage an healthy behavior. You can also encourage long-term holding with staking mechanism. And so you have to use these tools to make sure that the user of your ecosystem will be incentivized to create value for the whole ecosystem. And then you have to look at the token metrics. What will be the price per token you will be sold? What will be the bonuses? What will be the market capitalization? What will be the total supply, the circulating supply? At what rate the circulating supply will grow? So you have to figure out all these steps. Then once you have all your token model, you have your white paper, you are sure that everything is working well, you have to give a certain value to your token. Actually, what you are evaluating is the market capitalization, because it's the number of token times the price per token. Because if you have less token but at a higher price, it's the same. What's important is the market cap. And so to model this market cap, if the token is the internal currency of your ecosystem, meaning that you will buy and sell some goods or services using this token, you should use a quantity theory of money. If there is a certain cash flow that will come to token holder, you will use discounted cash flow. In that case, it's a security token. So for most utility token, quantity theory of money should be used. So basically, we have been talking about market sizing and financial modeling is because by definition, the value of the market capitalization is equal to the size of the market, the quantity of goods or services multiplied by the price, and this must be divided by the velocity because it's a currency that people will be exchanging. So you have to make some assumptions to model the demand and to model the velocity, and then you will have an idea of what will be the amount of money needed for your token sale. Or at least, for instance, if the valuation of your market cap is 20 million and you are raising 10 million, it means that theoretically the token price will be multiplied by 2. If the fundamental value is only 1 million and you raise 10 million, it means that theoretically you will have 90% loss. So this market sizing and valuation, it should help you to define what's your hard cap, what's your soft cap, so to make sure that you are not raising too much money for a too small market. So this valuation formula should be applied to each use case. So for instance, if the token allows you to buy a certain good and certain services, you have to do the valuation for the good and the valuation for the services, and then to sum up both of them, and then you get the value for the total market cap. And then, as the last key point you have to look at is the supply and demand on exchanges. Because the price of the token after the ICO, when it's listed, it will depend on supply and demand movement. If there is more demand, high price will go up. If there is more supply, price will go down. So you have to model prior to listing what will be the key drivers. So the driver supply will be the ICO buyers who bought the token and are willing to sell it on the exchanges to crystallize profits. You have people that have been getting rewarded with the token that will resell it. For instance, we know that, to go back to Bitcoin, Bitcoin miner represents the main supply for Bitcoin because they receive Bitcoin for free, and so they have an incentive to sell it and receive fiat currency for that. And then you have the natural participants receiving tokens as a medium of payment. So if you receive some tokens and you need to pay your employee with euro, you will need to convert your token for euros to pay your employees. So that's the three main supply drivers that will meet the demand drivers on exchanges. So main source of demand are organic demand. People will need your token to access a good, access a service. It can also be people who need the token because it works as a taxi medallion for a certain industry. So it's the organic demand that you have to model. It's not like a business plan, but it's quite similar. You have to model it. And then you have the speculative demand. Speculative demand is very hard to model because there is no rationale behind it. And so speculative demand is what will cause the pump and dump. So these people buying the token to make a profit, then selling it higher, and that's what creating this huge spike on token price. So actually to avoid such speculative pump and dump, a lot of token use market making. So market making is liquidity. A market maker is a liquidity provider. It will ensure price stability by reducing the bid ask and increasing the depth of market. So the idea is that if for instance, you are launching a token that represents a service for your company, and you have one of your consumers that needs a token to buy the service and is willing to buy 10,000 euro worth of your token. So you need to have 10,000 euros on the exchange as a sell order, because if there is no these sell orders, you will not be able to buy the token, or it will create huge price increase. So actually, the size of the orders need to meet your ecosystem requirement. What are the average buy and sell order from the organic demand and for the people that have been rewarded as well. And so actually liquidity for token that is listed is almost as important as token modeling. So a bit about us, so it's me and my business partner Abdel Halim helping me with this company. And so that's all for